Okay, so we are here discussing automatically tagging RCs with the release to merge request 853. There's one thing in this which is about stable branch creation, which is the thing we want to discuss. So let me go to the where it is here. So there is this. Okay, so one of the discussion is about what we are deploying here, because we had some problems during 12.5 release where we ended up deploying commits that never reached production. So out of that, we, as corrective actions, we changed the charops command for creating the stable branch to pick exactly the latest commit in production as a source for the stable branch creation. And up to this moment in time, because we are still following this path, what happens is that we do tag RC42 with right after creating the stable branch, basically. So we create RC42, and basically we always retag this as the final monthly version, because it never happened so far that we had to change something. It happens very close to the date of the release. So we just test it and then we retag and publish. So in this merge request, we are creating RCs automatically earlier in the process, right? So there is a class here that is taking care of not backporting, but basically the stable branch on GitLab itself gets created earlier in the process when we run the first RC. And so there is a process here that keep merging the current head of the latest auto deploy into that stable branch so that it converges to the same point. My concern here is that this is exactly what caused the problem with 12.5, because we created the stable branch out of the head of auto deploy, but it was not the thing that we deployed on production. So long story short, I think we can keep this exactly how it is, but when we search the source branch for the upgrade process, instead of checking the current auto deploy branch, we should consider looking at the latest commit deployed to production, so that we still have the same thing, that we keep creating RCs based on what we deployed on gitlab.com. So it's more in line with what we are doing and what we may eventually release. And we have this, and we know for sure that when we keep updating the stable branch, it's updated from a point in time where we knew that this is something that runs on .com. So we are more confident on the end result.
Yeah, so that's something Mary and I discussed, I think it was last Wednesday. Originally in the sketch that I had, it actually used the SHA that was deployed. There were some technical issues there that when you have that SHA, there's the issue of not being able to merge a source branch up until a particular point. So if we want to merge those changes from the auto deploy branch, you have to create a new branch based on the commit that was deployed, and then merge that with a merge request, remove it. Fairly minor issue, but it's a bit of an annoying step. But I think in that discussion, I don't entirely remember how we sort of concluded that that wasn't necessary, that we could just merge auto deploy to stable. And I think the impression was that auto deploy should be green anyway. So therefore, finding green commits would be essentially redundant. Because if it's red and stable's red, we don't tag release, etc. But then when I later thought about it, it was like, okay, wait, you can still have this issue where, maybe it's green or maybe it's red, but there might be commits we just haven't deployed yet for whatever reason. But with the whole discussion, I kind of got a little confused. So maybe Maren has some more insight there.
All right. So yeah, what we ended up discussing in depth is, Alessio, you're right. We started with querying GitLab.com to get the latest deployed one, right? And as Yorick just explained, this ended up being a bit too complex. The point here was, and why we decided to go forward with this type of situation where even we can get a situation where the branch is red, is that we still control when we tag the final self-managed release. We still have the final check in the process that says, well, check if the branches are green and then tag a release, right? Tag the final one. So this is why we decided to kind of waive this complexity due to the process that we have. Yes, there is a chance that I actually see a different problem. There is a chance that we'll create a new auto deploy branch in the run up to the release that will then be completely undeployed, or sorry, not deployed, right? Like that is the problem that we wanna consider. But for that one, we can also work with process a bit and expect human interaction, because I'm starting to kind of turn around a tiny bit on Yorick's, not side, but a point of view, where we can only automate so much before we say that release managers have to do something, and this is, I think, the risk that we should reduce to zero by creating a couple of checks, safekeep checks, in the final days to the release, to run up to the tagging of the release, right? So what we are right now saying is that we kind of do cut that stable branch 2 work days prior to the actual release, which means that we have 2 days to stabilize things, or rather control things manually if necessary. Like in those 2 days, we actually don't expect release managers to do any work. This can be one of those things that we should be checking. That's the general concept that we are currently thinking about.
Right. So to sort of add to that, like basically the process of finding the last green commit, like we have the code for that, and since we already set up merge request to remove that temporary branch, we could just set it up so that the branch gets removed when the merge request is merged. I think one of the main issues there that we couldn't really solve in the last discussion is that theoretically, but unlikely, it's possible that we deploy a particular commit, we add new commits, and then for whatever reason that deployed commit has its pipeline retried, it fails. We come in to create a stable branch, try to find the last green commit, and we actually revert back to the commit before. And as far as I know in Git, there's not really an easy way of saying, hey, does this commit come after this other one? Like you can check the parents, I think, but because it's a graph, it's not particularly reliable. And the time is also not linear. Like you can merge very old commits and then sorting by time gets all kinds of weird results. So I think the only way you could do that is you basically start at the tip of the head and walk back. And then the moment you find that SHA that's already deployed, you basically break out of it, which is doable. And I think if we sort of ignore that, I think finding the last green commit and merging that is not that big of a deal, but let me just quickly check if our API actually supports creating a branch from a commit, because if it doesn't, then we're basically screwed anyway. Let's see, create repository branch. Yeah, it supports creating from a ref, which according to the documentation is also a SHA. So theoretically, we could do that. Then though, we do still have the potential issue that if a new auto deploy branch is created, we may end up, finding a green commit, but that might be a commit that just hasn't been deployed yet. And
I want to stress this because this happened very often, because every time we run the cherry pick job, it will find the latest green master on Gitly. And we don't always promote this, especially in the last 2 days when we are close to the final release. This happened, and this happens a lot. So this may affect the final release. Right. And another thing regarding the merging stuff, I'm quite sure that we have some ref which is outside of the default ref spec that points to the environment. So we have something like, instead of ref branches, whatever, it's something like ref environment grpd. And if you change the ref spec, you can fetch it. So maybe, but I'm not sure, we have to check this, we can create the merge request out of this. So it just merge the ref spec pointing to the latest production deployment into stable branch. And so it would always be the same ref spec.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the API is not going to like that.
I mean, if we can expand the API to add that,
right. I mean, theoretically, if it's just a ref, I don't think it should care. But I wouldn't be surprised if, like, 15 layers deep, there's a check like, if this is not a branch, don't do it, because whatever reason. But that's an interesting one. Let me actually.
Well, it is a branch. Down. It's not where Git expect to find branches.
Right. Well, so my point is, like, we have some checks which say, is this a branch, by looking at the refs and basically say, does it start with refs/branch? Let me write this down. Hold on. All right, wrote that down at least. Yeah, so then we don't have to create a branch for that, although that's a minor concern. Yeah, so green commits, we can deal with that. I think the new auto deploy branch one is a little, let me see if that's a little more difficult. Yeah, I think if we use these environment refs, maybe less of an issue, because then we never have to actually use the auto deploy as a source. But yeah, if you don't have those refs, then yeah, we basically need another way of dealing with it. I think how ChatOps handles this, it basically gets the SHA that is deployed, and it will then find all branches that have it with the name auto deploy and then a pattern, and it will then just get the first one, which can create problems where if it's on 2 auto deploy branches for whatever reason, it may actually pick the wrong one.
Can we create a throwaway branch out of this? I mean, we just create a branch with the API from that ref, right, and then we create the merge request which has the delete branch flag.
Yeah.
Preset.
Yes. So that's essentially what we don't delete the source branch right now, but we right now take the auto deploy branch as it is saved in release tools in the environment variable, and then we just create a merge request from that branch pointing to stable. If you have those environment refs, I think this will be a lot easier, because then basically it's not an issue. Although actually, hold on. No, I think it actually might still be an issue, because when we run a deployment, it will, that ref will point to whatever was deployed, but they can actually be merge requests picked into that branch after that. And if we then come in and try and merge those commits, the test might still be running, or they may have failed. So we actually still need to find on this ref what is the latest green commit.
Again, so do we need to do that, right? Like if we are, like if that is the branch that is deployed to production, that is by default green.
Well, so it doesn't have to be. So let's say that on Monday we do deploy, new auto deploy branch, etc. Everything's fine. It's green. On Wednesday, this auto tagging stuff starts running. And on Tuesday, some new merge requests have been picked into the auto deploy branch. But there are some test failures. I don't know, Karma fails or code quality or whatever. At that point, if we don't find the green commits, we would merge those red commits into stable. We wouldn't actually run a release because the test would fail. And this is kind of my point to Alessio. We can then deal with that by putting the fixes in auto deploy, rerunning the tagging, and then they end up in stable 2. But you are in a bit of a situation. Well, let's say on that Wednesday we say no, we have to create a patch release or whatever right now. We then have to say, okay, we have these bunch of commits. We now have to revert those manually, I guess, probably the best way. Wait for the test to be green again and then release. So there are solutions. And I think that's originally why it's kind of like, yeah, maybe we can just skip the green commit thing.
I'm a bit confused with this, honestly, because we wouldn't be in this situation, because if I understand what Alessio is saying about this ref environment, let's call it branches, is that they are always pointing to the last commit that was deployed to production. If it's deployed to production.
Oh, yeah.
We already had the pipeline running on that and was green.
Yeah, I was a bit confused. I thought for a moment this ref would basically point to the auto deploy branch.
No, to the commit.
Right.
It's a branch
to the commit.
And if this is not valid, for some reason, we cannot create a merge request. We can either fix it in product, or for the first couple of release, create a branch out of that ref. With the post, which is the create branch API, you can take a SHA, create a ref, which may be production and the date. And then we set this as an auto delete. So you create it, create a merge request, the bot assigns, merge everything, and the branch disappears.
Right. Yeah, so that was my confusion. I thought I was pointing to the auto deploy branch, and that's why I was saying, hey, new commits can be introduced after that. But if it's the commit itself, should be fine, assuming those refs are there. Let's say for a moment those refs don't exist, or for whatever reason, it's basically not an option. We could decide to skip finding green commits under the assumption that stable will fail anyway, so there's not going to be a broken package. And whatever fixes, well, basically, if stable's red, it means auto deploy is red, which means there's people working on it. And at the point when there's a fix, we can just rerun this or let it rerun automatically, and the fix will make itself into stable. I'm just curious if we're basically willing to say, like, hey, let's say we have a not a critical situation, but a situation where we have to create a release from stable. That's the point where we have to say, okay, you might, in rare cases, need to revert some commits if they are not green yet. But I'm not sure if that's really an issue in practice, or if it's any different from what we basically do today already.
I don't think we deal with stable branches today, because we just created right before tagging. So
exactly.
we never had this situation, because it was green on auto deploy. That same, it's a bit different than what you are trying to do here, because in our case we branch off from that commit, so it's guaranteed to be green. In what we are doing now, we keep merging stuff. So consider that all the cherry picks will appear twice, basically. Because if we start creating this on week 1, let's say, so we cherry picked something that will be in week 2 auto deploy. I'm still talking about weeks, even if we do it twice a week, but just to give an example. So the same cherry picked things will be on the second merge, because we are merging from in the new auto deploy, and so on and so on. So the end result will be slightly different, because we have those merge commits that we don't have in the current situation. We just branch off and bump the version. But yeah, I mean, it's a cherry pick. It should be able to understand that this is doing exactly the same thing, and so it should.
Yeah, and I think those merge commits are not really the biggest issue, and Yeah, I mean, if they really are, we can always put some code in place so that it rebases the commits into the target branch instead of using merge commits, but I don't think that's an issue. But okay, then I think what I'll do is I'll look at those environment refs, and we'll write this down in the issue first. Sorry, the merge request. Take a look at those environment refs. If they, for whatever reason, are not an option, and we can't make it an option, I think we can just, I guess, keep it as it is now and just merge all the deploy and stable and just be like, eh. Then, yeah, worst case, we might have to revert commits at some point, but okay. So that clears up a bunch of things. Yeah, I think.
What was the reason, Yorick? What was the reason for us ruling out querying GitLab.com versions to check the latest SHA?
So there wasn't necessarily anything ruling that out. I mean, that getting that SHA is quite easy. There's an API for it. It's more tricky to go from that to an auto deploy branch and guarantee that there's always only one. And that's when you reminded me, like, hey, wait a minute, don't we store that in an environment variable? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but this is because you want to merge the branch. But if you create a new branch out of that ref, then you no longer have the problem.
Yeah, that's
no. And so right now in my code, we also don't query the version because we just grab the source branch from the environment.
Yeah, but in your code, let's say it happened in the past that we created a new auto deploy branch and we didn't deploy it time, so we're still running the old one.
You can always compare though, right? You can always compare and say, like, I'll try to see the SHA deployed on production, which branch is it from? Let me query the environmental variable to understand what is currently set there. If they're matching, do something. If they're not matching, yell.
Right.
Or not yell, like, I don't know, do something.
Yeah, probably could be. The thing that is, though, I think getting the version from GitLab.com is, I think for this process, not necessary, because we can either get the older deploy branch from, the end variable. Then we have the problem, has it actually been deployed? You could use the GitLab.com shell for that, but they have the issue, like, technically it's possible there's no auto deploy branches or multiple ones. It's all very rare, but it's kind of at a point like you can error. You can say, hey, we found 3 auto deploy branches, but then what should a release manager do? Right? It might say, oh, find the right one and delete the other ones. And the answer for the release manager is like, which ones? Right.
Yeah, I mean, but that's something to resolve by training folks, right? Like explaining.
But
I don't think we can. I don't think we can over optimize for things that we don't really know.
Yeah, but it can. I mean, the only reason why that commit is in more than one auto deploy branches is because it's the source branch of one of those. Because right after creating that, we commit the Gitali version, which is a new commit created on that branch. So in theory, either it's a pick or it's a Gitali upgrade. So it's a commit which is specific to one branch.
Right.
And on top of that, if it's the source creation, so it's the first one, I would not trust that because it has a potentially broken Gitali version.
Right. Yeah, so it is a very rare case. And it was at a point where you can just error, say, hey, we found these branches, go figure it out yourself. But it was a bit of a case where I felt like, okay, if this is sort of the way of handling it, is there a better way so that we don't have to do this in the first place? Yeah, we can do that, definitely. We'll see if those environment refs are there.
I mean, we already then have 2 options that are better than what we started with, right? Feels like. So yeah, let's see. I mean, we don't want to automate so much that we then don't have any work left. I'm joking, obviously. That is, there is no chance in the world that's gonna.
Also keep the automation working. It's a full-time
Yes,
job.
exactly. Keep the engine running. All right.
Yeah, I think
Cool.
that's all. The other stuff about the JSON track, I'm not sure if we want to discuss it now. Basically, just trying to
I
figure
have
out
to
how
leave in
squeeze
4
it.
minutes. So if
Yeah,
you want to
so it's not-
continue, feel free.
No, it's basically I'm just trying to squeeze that into a format that works, but I'll figure that out.
Cool.
All right.
All right. Thanks, folks.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.